What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Golly Potential Trades YouTube channel, a channel where I essentially share my process, my progress along this trading journey that I have been embarking on. So the last video that I uploaded, when I was talking about my current trading progress, when I showed my funding account challenges and the progress I had made within those. Well, since then, unfortunately, I have blown those accounts. It was, I want to say, it was one or two trades that did it for me since that video. But since then, I have learned so much. And essentially, that's what I want to talk about in this video. Just want to document my process, or my thought process, whenever this happened. So when this initially happened, when I took this trade on, price almost immediately started to go against me. And so as this was happening, I had to ask myself, I said, would I take this trade again if given a different opportunity? And the answer was yes, because it matched my criteria, my entry rules. And when a trade ultimately hit my stop loss, which another thing I shouldn't have done was I increased my stop loss. I set where it was, and when I trade, I put the risk amount that I want, to risk put on. What happened was I moved the stop loss a little higher after that I put the risk on. So ultimately what I was willing to risk ended up being more, because I raised that because I seen spread was beginning to widen. And my thought process was, well, if price goes up and just, stays underneath that swing high, what it was, but the spread takes me out and then it goes in my direction, I will be upset. And so doing that made me breach the daily drawdown amount, because I was already pretty close to that drawdown amount, the trailing drawdown, which I can't stand the trailing. So that happened, and that resulted in me breaching those two accounts. But the thing that I got from it was, when the trade lost, I was upset, yes, but also it was like a burden was lifted, because for one, I was in drawdown on one account already, and then the E8 account, the one I had the most progress in, I had lost a few trades on that. And so I was trying to climb from 3.6% in profit. Then I dropped down to, I think, 1 point something at the end of that day. So ultimately, I don't know, it was just a relief. And what I got from that was, and what I do now and what I will do moving forward, is ask myself, before I take a trade, ask myself, if this trade goes against me, will I respond with, fuck, I knew I shouldn't have taken that trade because A, B, or C? And if that's the case, then I'm not taking it, because it's similar to that analogy that I used in my last video when I said we're all in the markets, right? And for me, that video was talking about when watching other people trade, maybe let's say you're in a Discord or something, but I was waking up and like going to YouTube live streams, just have traders in the background just because, it just gets me in that mode to trade. But I would see them taking their setups, and it's not my setup because we trade different strategies. And so that was the whole analogy of staying within your sector of fire. So with the whole, will I say fuck, I know I should have taken this trade, that kind of goes to the whole, if you take a shot because you see, like using the sniper analogy, if you take a shot in someone else's sector or a sector that isn't yours because you see what seems to be movement or something, or you see a potential setup happening, if you hit that shot, yes, luck was most likely on your side because that's not within your area of responsibility. The people who are like with you on your side or whatever, they may praise you like, oh dude, that was a lucky shot, dude, good shit. However, if you lose that trade or if you miss that shot, that's when the ramifications are increased. That's when, why were you taking that shot? That's outside of your AOR. In other words, why'd you take that trade? That's not within your trading plan. What are you doing? And this really hit home with me whenever I reviewed all the trades that I took on that account that I was in the most profit in, because I had that account the longest. And so when I looked at the trade history, in fact, if I can bring it up. So when I looked at the trade history, I think it was a total of 14. Let me see. Move this over here real quick. It's a total of 14 total trades. Guess how many of those trades followed my actual strategy. Let me bring it up. Where's it at? Here it is. So out of all of these trades, 14 total trades, these are the notes that I had down with it. This, the last trade, is a pretty good trade. So that was in alignment. This setup, the one before that, I had no business taking this setup. I was watching CBD divergence, which it's just something that I was testing out, It's not something that's a part of my strategy. Yet I was testing it out, thought that I knew how it should behave, and I took a trade off of that, and I got burned. Why? Because I didn't have enough backtest data on it. I didn't have a setup around that confluence. So this trade, it was, the right trade for me to take. This one was as well, but this one also was. So that's 4 trades. That's 5. And I want to say 5 out of the 14 trades were actually following my trading plan. Now, granted, the earlier trades, this was before I had my strategy more refined. So I'll just say that those trades were technically a part of the plan, but it wasn't the plan that I actually intended on getting profitable with. So just looking at that and looking at the trades that were not part of my trading plan, my written down trading plan, I'm like, oh, that's what it is. And I think a lot of us new traders, or a lot of us traders, can relate when we're trying to get to that consistently profitable stage. We have a trading plan, we have a strategy. It's probably working for us. Otherwise, we would have a different strategy. But it's the trades that we make up on the fly that fucks us over. It's the trades that we take, and our immediate response when we lose it is, fuck, I knew I shouldn't have taken that trade. It's those trades. And that, from my experience, as a result of constantly strategy hopping, constantly trying to prove, or constantly just looking at other things to add on to the current strategy because we want to avoid a loss at all costs. So it's like, okay, if I tweak this strategy even more and more, refine it more and more and more and more and more, then it will be flawless, which is it's not true. It's impossible. Nothing is flawless. In fact, I was on a flight. The other day, and because it's a longer flight, a couple hours, download certain games and stuff you can play on there. And one of the games I had on my phone was blackjack, and I was playing back blackjack. I don't know how to actually play it. I mean, I guess I learned from the game, but I've never played it like at a casino type of deal. But as I was playing the game, and if I have the concept down correctly, it's essentially the person who wins is the person who gets closest to 21 without going over 21. And so as I was playing this, I came out with a strategy with it. I was like, okay, once the dealer give me my 2 cards, if the total outcome is above 14, then I will stand. In other words, I will not pull any more cards. I'll let them go. Because in my head, in that short period of time, I calculated that, okay, if it goes over this amount, if it goes over 13, 14, or 15, whatever it was, then the likelihood of me pulling something that's less than a 4 or a 5 is a lot lower than me pulling something, higher. So that was my little strategy. Okay, if I get a 13, 14, or 15, something like that, then I will stand. I will not hit. And so that became my strategy, if you will. And it was times when the dealer would, deal me the cards, and it would be like a 19, a 18, hell, a 20. And I'm like, oh, I for sure got this. I definitely won this. AKA, this is the A+ setup that we have. But then the dealer will pull a 21, if I pulled a 20. The dealer will pull a 20 if I pulled a 19, or the dealer will pull a 20 and I pulled a 20, So it's like basically a break even, So that just allowed me to see more. First of all, it's the probabilistic nature of the markets, because you have your setup, and also you get a random distribution of cards that you're dealt. So just because the last time you pulled a 17, you stood, you hit stand, and then you won, doesn't mean the next time you do that you will win. And so that's one of the things that I caught on to and I learned. And so that kind of helped me even more with the probabilistic nature of the market. So if you haven't, given that a shot, I'd say it'd probably be beneficial to you. Just don't put real money on it unless you like to gamble. Do your thing. But yeah, that was the main takeaway. One of the main takeaways I got out of this whole process so far with the losses. It's not that my strategy sucks. It's that I'm not following a strategy and continually inventing trades on the fly based off limited data. Because for me, my setup is a reversal setup. And I'm like, well, the market is trending. I can't get in now, So I need to develop a continuation strategy. And whatever the case is, it's constantly trying to learn more stuff. And it's just that loop, that cycle of doom, because once you start learning something new, you feel like, oh, this is it. This is going to be the strategy, that takes me to that next level. And then you work that strategy a little bit, and then you go on a losing streak, and then You're looking again. You're looking again. You're seeing other people online trading their strategy. You're like, oh, that strategy looks dope. Let me give that a shot. Let me give that a try, you know? And then I think the worst part, the hardest part to get over is if you're like me, you've been at this thing for 5, 6 years, the likelihood of you going through so many different strategies, it's very high, and all that stuff is in your head. You're like, okay. So as you can see, like, I'm like, okay, cool. Look, I'm looking at this. I don't trade this, but look, this is with the ICT, with this, the, what's the shit called? The, the BPR, you know, you got one fair value gap inside of another. Oh yeah, I can see that. And I'm like, oh yeah, price displaced through this. So, and then it came back. Let me see. Price displaced through this, made a fair value gap, came back, got pretty close to it. I could have entered on that. And it's just like, just all the shit, you know? And it's like constantly like, yeah, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this, I could do that. But all that stuff is, it's just cluttering the mind. Hold on, let me let this, okay. Yeah, it's a bunch of clutter that I need to overcome. And so what I did was I wrote out my trading plan all over again, you know, and I made it clear. Also, that's another thing. I looked at my trading plan and it wasn't very clear. It was, I made it a while back, and since then I'd added stuff, and I just had to redo it, to refine it, you know, to clean the space, you know, to clean up and get it right again. And yeah, I've been talking a while, but yeah, those are the takeaways that I've gathered so far. And the main one for me is when I take a trade, I say, if this trade goes against me, will my response be, fuck, I knew I shouldn't have taken that trade? If it will be that response, then do not take on that trade. Also, too, just real quick, yesterday, I was in the markets and a setup presented itself. It started out, you know, meeting my criteria, but then a few things did not line up with my strategy. So I didn't take it. And then price ended up, you know, going in the direction that I intended on. It didn't hit my entry triggers. And so initially it's that feeling of fuck, dude. It left without me, you know. They bring up that whole wound of separation, you know. They left without me. Somebody else is on that train, you know. They're getting success from that, and I am not. But I had to reframe that and say, listen, that did not line up with my strategy, because if I would have taken that trade and it would have went against me, I would have said, fuck, I know I shouldn't have taken that trade because of A, B, and C. And so that alone just shifted that whole energetic response I had towards it. It was no longer that, fuck, I missed out on the move. It was actually, that was me taking a shot outside of my sector that I had nothing, I knew nothing about. If I would have hit it, yeah, I would have been like, oh yeah, I'm a genius, you know, I'm a G. But if I would have lost it, I would have been like, fuck, I knew I shouldn't have taken that trade. And that's kind of like the whole thing of when intuition comes into the markets, you know, or just intuition in life in general. You know, you have that feeling you shouldn't do certain thing, and then you do it, and you're like, fuck, dude, something told me not to do that, and you did it. And that's the worst feeling, when something tells you not to and you go against it. You know, it's no different than we create our trading plan when we're in this nice environment, you know, and it's like, okay, if this, then this, you know, it's drew out. It's like an architect, you know, like a architect just draws out the building plans. But then when we're in the live markets, that's us, okay, actually building the fucking house, you know. That's us looking at the map when everything's nice and comfortable, it's controlled, and then we actually go out there and we have to trek through this terrain now. The map is very one-dimensional, you know, it's a flat surface, It has hills and valleys drawn on it, but when you're actually walking through it, that's when it comes into play. And so I say all that to say we create our trading plan for a reason, because we're in a calm environment and we're using logic and data with these things. But when we're in the markets, the emotions begin to become real, and they are spiked. You know, we're super precision focused on one thing. We get blindsided. That's why we refer back to our trading plan, because it's essentially our more calm, logical self that came up with this. It's that map we drew out before we went on that journey. Because when you're walking through that valley and you're like, dude, I don't know where I'm at. The map says to keep going this way, but dude, I don't know if I got a feeling, I got an emotion telling me we should probably turn left here. No, you follow the map, you follow the trading plan, because you're basically looking at it from a higher vantage point before you get dropped into it. So yeah, just ask yourself, or I'm going to ask myself, if this trade goes against me, if I lose this trade, will I say, fuck, I knew I should have taken that trade? And if the answer is yes, don't take the trade. Stick to the trading plan. Continue to journal. Of course, when you're in the markets, you're going to see stuff, things that start to repeat. Now, again, this is just me talking to myself. We're going to see stuff that starts to repeat, and then I'll be a fool to ignore it. Jot it down, put it into a separate folder in my Notion, so that I'm saying, okay, I'm going to get some backtest data on this. And then once I come up with a plan around that, then I can add it to my playbook. But I'm not going to test it in the live markets. No, it's not happening. That's like you walking through this forest or whatever, and you see these berries, this type of fruit. And instead of, okay, I'm seeing it here, I'm seeing it there, okay, let me draw this out, let me throw these in the backpack. Let me draw what it looks like, let me write down everything I see around it and how it grows, and basically like if it has thorns on it, this and that. So then you can take it back, do some research, and figure out what this fruit actually is. And then say, okay, cool. I've come to the conclusion that this is edible. I can't eat this. Or I've come to the conclusion that I can't eat this. Instead of actually being in the live jungle, in the live wilderness, saying, that looks like a fruit. We passed some back there. I think I'm going to try it. I know I'm limited on water. I'm trying to get to this destination, but I'm going to try this fruit out. And, I should live, I'm pretty sure I will live, because the emotion's saying I'm hungry now, so yeah, I will fucking eat it. And then all of a sudden you're throwing up. Now you're dehydrated, and now you're fucked even more. So, aka you lost the trade. But anyway, that's been enough for this journal entry, for this video. But yeah, I just want to remind myself that, hey, if I put this trade on, am I going to say, fuck, I knew I should have taken that trade? If the answer is yes, I'm not doing it. No more. But that's been the video. Hope you guys got some out of it. Like I said, it's just my journal entries. But until next time, I'm out. Peace.